coming. I'm actually going to be giving this talk at Moffitt as well, a little more sciencey to some of the medical residents there. So, okay, so plant-based nutrition and cancer. And I mentioned this before, but I just want, genes are not your destiny. So we always hear about people saying, oh, my whole family had cancer, I'm gonna get cancer, and they're just waiting. But I want to empower you that their genes are just a suggestion. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to prevent, some medicine-wise, how to prevent, as well as to help if you have been diagnosed. Okay. So one of my favorite quotes is the Ayurvedic proverb that when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use, but when diet is correct, medicine is of no need. So many of our chronic illnesses, the majority of our chronic illnesses are really diet and lifestyle induced. So if, diabetes, heart disease, so many of them cancer can be prevented by correct diet. So this really gets to the heart of why eating a whole food plant-based or a predominantly plant-based diet really it prevents you needing to have medicine. Okay. So Oscar and Palermo, see, these are my two dogs. So this is the story about me. So I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner for 17 years. I went to Massachusetts General Hospital Institute of Health Professions in Boston. And the majority of my career, I practiced in Boston as a hospitalist, inpatient in the hospital for long length of stay, medically complex patients. It was a great, really intellectually stimulating position. I also did some post-rehab, some post-acute positions focusing on geriatrics. But about 4 years ago, we got Oscar, who was the black and white dog. He's a rescue dog. We got him when he was 8, and he just totally changed my life. And so when we got him, and my life began to revolve around Oscar. And then just one day I was eating dinner and I was patting Oscar and I was eating a piece of pork, and it occurred to me something that I had read, that pigs are actually smarter than dogs in terms of they have the vocabulary, the intellectual capability of about a 3-year-old. And from that moment on, I stopped eating meat. I just couldn't do it. I just said if I wasn't going to eat my dog, I couldn't eat the pig. So, and then being a science-based person, I wanted to find out more about what that would mean to go vegan. And then I found this world of whole food plant-based nutrition and the power and the data and the science and the research that has been out there. And so I just really went down that rabbit hole, and this has now been really one of the focuses of sharing this information. And then Palermo is our little love. Palermo, they're half brothers, so Palermo is the white dog, and we got him about 6 months later. They had to rehome, both of them. And so Oscar now is going to be 12 this month, and Palermo just turned 6. So they really are the love of our lives, yes. And Palermo, oh my God, he's just such a sweetheart. They're both wonderful, but Palermo is just the happiest dog. So, okay, so how does cancer happen, right? So cancer is a disease that is caused when cells divide uncontrollably, and then they spread into surrounding tissues. It's really caused by changes to DNA. So most cancer-causing DNA changes occur in sections of the DNA called genes. So, but there are 3 stages of development of cancer. So there's initiation, and then there's promotion and progression. So initiation is really, which happens constantly all day long. Our cells are constantly bombarded with carcinogens, with toxins that causes a little bit of DNA change. But our bodies are amazing, and they will fix it and put it back into circulation. Or it will what we do called apoptosis, which is cell death, where they'll kill that cell. So our bodies in the right situation will take those cells that have been exposed to a carcinogen and a cancer-causing agent, and they will fix it, and then you go on. But then if you don't have the right situation, then the cells start to grow. So cell proliferation means that they multiply. So then you get promotion. So and then keeps going and going. And when you get enough of them, you develop a tumor and cancer. Some are very slow growing, as you know. But so you can see in the middle here, sometimes anywhere in the middle from the beginning where you have a altered DNA up to cell proliferation, given the right situation, you can get apoptosis, which is cell death. So, and kind of to do a rough analogy with planting a lawn. So initiation is put the seeds in the soil. Promotion is when the grass starts to grow. And progression is when the grass is just out of control and, you know, you get it on the sidewalk and everything. So carcinogens are what cause the damage to the cells. And it is this damaged DNA that causes chaos. It really causes the workings of the cell to go haywire. But like I said, our bodies are smart, and if given the right situation, most are repaired very quickly. And this is where antioxidants come in. So when you have free radicals, you've heard about free radicals, they irritate the cell, they damage the DNA, and the antioxidants come in and fix the cell. Okay. So genes, so remember, as I said, genes do not determine really disease on their own. They really only function as a suggestion. They need to be activated or expressed. So, and nutrition really plays a crucial role in determining which genes, whether bad or good, are being expressed. So they need to be activated, as I said. And how are they activated? They're activated by lifestyle, and this is where nutrition comes in. You know, our body is generating cancer cells every day, as we mentioned, but what makes them stick and replicate and develop into a clinically significant cancer? And that's lifestyle. So as I always like to say, yes, you inherit your genes from your parents. So yes, if your mother had breast cancer, the chance of you having breast cancer is increased. But the more important thing that you inherit from your parents is their lifestyle. So the foods they eat, the culture around eating, how active you are, and etc. So these are really the things that contribute more to your health destiny than your actual genes. So cancer in the United States accounts for about 500 to 600,000 deaths annually. But of that, only 3% of cancers are genetically related. So that is really important to know. So the rest is really lifestyle related. So example for breast cancer, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. That's a current statistic. But a couple decades ago, it was 1 in 14. So as our lifestyle starts, we focus on not getting more exercise, not eating more fruits and veggies, more convenience foods. Those are going up, but people's genes are staying the same, right? So in breast cancer, only about 5 to 10% of those are due to a genetic mutation. So it varies obviously by type of cancer. So that means that 90% of breast cancers aren't genetically related. So genes are not your destiny. That's the theme for today. So 87% of women with breast cancer do not have a first-degree relative with breast cancer. So other data is that, so migrants that if they've done studies on people that move from a low area, so the example is Japan. So in Japan, there's a very low rate of breast cancer. But then if you have women who move from Japan to the United States and adapt the United States lifestyle and way of eating and our diet, they develop the risk similar to as though they have lived in the States their whole time. So they develop the risk of the area where they move to, and because they develop the culture, they get assimilated into the culture. They start eating. If they continue to eat the traditional Japanese diet, their cancer risk does not increase. But if they start eating the standard American diet, which we call SAD diet, then their cancer risk is similar to those that have lived in the United States their whole time. So it's really nutrition, and it's a balance of the nutrients that are being consumed, the kinds of foods that are being consumed, And the ones that, there are certain ones that are basically able to sequester, to kind of wall off the toxicity that would otherwise occur when we're constantly being bombarded with these chemical carcinogens, and our cells are constantly being bombarded. So some foods that contribute to cancer and cancer growth. So animal proteins. So the China Project was a research study, which was a combination from Oxford and Cornell. It was a gigantic study that went on for years and years. It looked at 65 counties across China using extensive questionnaires and what they consumed and their exercise and whatnot, and actually and blood tests as well, and to gather information on 6,500 adults. When they were done, they had more than 8,000 statistically significant associations that they found between lifestyle, diet, and disease. So the China Study is the book that was published by T. Colin Campbell, who was the researcher at Cornell, and who he actually went into this, he went into the study thinking that protein was going to be associated with decreased cancer risk because of increased strength, but found the opposite. So they, in the China study, really found that animal protein has the ability to turn on and off cancer simply by adjusting the level of intake of that protein. So after they did their China project and they got some baseline information, then they did clinical trials, experiments, and tests, which yielded these results. T. Colin Campbell, his findings show that when the animal protein casein, which is what is found in milk, is consumed in large quantities, cancer cells actually increase in size. And when there's success, when they stop having consumption in casein, cancer tumor cells recede. So all forms of animal protein, though there are some differences, act overwhelmingly the same in the body. For example, so casein is the dairy protein. Meat is largely made up of the 3 major proteins in muscle, the egg white protein in eggs. So even with their differences, they really act the same in the body. So they all have what we call high biological value. Meaning, so people say these are the best proteins, right? So they have high biological value, meaning they are most efficient at growing cells, which is great if you're a baby or a teenager. So they are very efficient at growing all cells, including healthy cells and cancer cells alike. So, like casein and egg albumin, right? So casein is in milk, which is meant for baby cows. So it works really well in having a baby cow grow to 400 pounds in a year. So it's really good at that. But we don't want that as an adult, as a human adult, right? And then the egg albumin is there to provide nutrition for the baby chick. So it's really good at things that need to really have rapid cell division. And when it comes to cancer, we don't want that. That's the opposite of what we want. So they also, the animal proteins also stimulate the production of more growth factors, particularly what we call insulin-like growth factor. So insulin is a hormone that is actually a growth-promoting hormone in the body. So insulin-like growth factor is something similar to insulin, growth factor 1, and it is really, the studies have shown that it is highly associated with higher cancer growth rates. So every year, really, we turn over our cells in our body. You've probably heard, our skin cells are completely renewed every year. So every year we create and destroy nearly our entire body weight in new cells. It's remarkable. The human body is remarkable if you really stop and think about it. But so insulin-like growth factor, it's very active during childhood and puberty, because that's when we need to produce more cells, right? You think about how fast kids grow, and particularly in puberty. But when you reach adulthood, normally IGF-1 levels diminish. So our body doesn't want to be producing more cells. So we should stop producing more cells and it kills off. We should get to a level. But if your IGF-1 levels remain too high in childhood, your cells are constantly getting this message that they need to grow, divide, keep growing, keep going. We need more. And the more IGF, which is, you can actually test it in your blood, the more IGF-1 you have in your blood, the higher your risk of developing cancer, because it's telling cells to just develop, grow, divide. So, and based on studies, release of IGF-1 appears to be triggered by the consumption of animal protein. So many studies have shown that after 10 to 14 days of cutting back on animal protein, your IGF-1 levels in your blood drop by 20%. And interestingly, your body, when the IGF-1 drops, our body's own defense mechanism, which comes from our liver, it spits out what's called an IGF-1 binding protein, which is meant to bind onto the IGF-1 so it's not chemically active and it gets out of the body. That increases by 50%. So our body's defense mechanisms really kick into high gear when you cut down on the animal protein. So dairy is always the number one thing. So I do health coaching, I mentioned that. So, and when patients ask me, what's the number one thing I can do? The two things I say are get rid of dairy and then stop eating processed foods are the two. But dairy, I could go on forever about dairy, but we'll just talk a little about in terms of cancer. So, so it is insulin-like dairy is a super fast promoter of insulin-like growth factor. So the casein, the milk protein is really a strong promoter of insulin-like growth factor. So, and then cheese, it's even more concentrated. You take milk and you're concentrating it, so it's making it even more. So now estrogen, so milk is produced from cows, right, that are pregnant. They have to be pregnant to produce milk, or have just had a calf. So in milk, there are actually traces of mammalian estrogen, so mammal estrogen. But then when converted to cheese, the estrogen becomes really concentrated. So there's actually a group that is trying to get warning labels on cheese that says, you know, this product may increase, you know, just like you have on cigarettes, that says this product may increase your risk of breast cancer. So, and all the studies are showing that these estrogens really appear to be biologically active in humans. So there was a National Cancer Institute study that looked at the dietary intakes of about 1,900 women who were diagnosed with breast cancer, and found those who consume the most American cheddar and cream cheeses, the things we all like in the United States, which is funny. If you go abroad, you can't get cheddar cheese. It's really hard to get cheddar cheese. So the ones that consumed the most had a 53% increased risk of breast cancer. And those with ER negative breast cancer, which is a designation of estrogen receptor. So if you know breast cancer is estrogen positive, progesterone positive, who drank, so even estrogen receptor negative, who drank the most fluid milk had a 58% increased risk of breast cancer. So even those that weren't estrogen positive cancers. So it's really the thought part of that is so there's the estrogen component, but then even if they didn't have an estrogen sensitive cancer, that's where the insulin-like growth factor really increases the risk. And then there's many other growth hormones that are in milk, like I said, because it's meant to make a calf into a cow in short order. Okay, processed meats. Processed meats. Everyone loves their bacon. I don't know why I don't have bacon on this list. But really, over the years, evidence has been accumulating that processed meats cause cancer. There are 3 chemicals in particular that have been linked to colorectal cancer. One of them occurs naturally in meat. The others are added as part of the process to produce these meats. So heme is a pigment that's found mostly in red meat. It's the thing that makes your red meat bleed, gives it that bleed. And the thing that makes a hamburger taste like a hamburger. Nitrates and nitrites are added to keep processed meat fresher longer, so in deli meats or in sausage. And then other things, when you cook meat at high temperatures, so on the grill or you fry them in a pan, what happens when you get that nice crispy outside to the meat, that part is it's what we call heterocyclic amines, big fancy word but that actually is a carcinogen when you consume that in your body. So that causes cell damage. So all of these chemicals can damage the cells in the colon and rectum. And then as damage accumulates over time, the cancer risk increases with that. So, and the International Agency for Research on Cancer, they classify, so they determine different carcinogens around the world and how closely they are related to cancer. So they determined that processed meat is a class 1 carcinogen, which means carcinogenic to humans. So tobacco is also a class 1 carcinogen. So it is processed meats is to colon cancer as smoking is to lung cancer. So does that mean everyone who eats deli meats will get cancer? No, because you know people who have smoked their whole entire life and they don't get lung cancer. But given the right circumstances, it could. I like to think about as having smoke blown in your face. So every time you eat processed meat, it's kind of like someone's blowing smoke in your face. So processed meats. So animal proteins, dairy, and processed meats. So Hippocrates, who is really the father of medicine, he always said, let food be thy medicine. So let food be what cures you. And these are beans, which I love. I love all of them. I eat a lot of beans. So soy is one of the foods that you can eat that has great preventative as well if you can use after you've been diagnosed. So eating soy foods like tofu. So this is a variety of different types of soy foods. While meat alternatives they're processed, they're still better than meats. So eating soy foods like tofu, edamame, and soy milk has been linked to reduced risks of certain cancers, including breast cancer, prostate cancer, and gastric cancer. The thought initially was that it was because you're kind of removing the risk of what you're replacing it with. But the further study has really shown that it's actually additive, that it actually has a positive effect as opposed to a negative effect from removing the meat. So soy has isoflavones. So these are naturally occurring chemicals found primarily in soybeans. These are classified as phytoestrogens. And this is why 20 years ago, people, they did some study on rats and gave them like 20 pounds of soy, and they thought it maybe contributed to cancer. Well, rats process soy completely different. And so the more recent data over the past 10 years or so has really shown that phytoestrogens are different from human estrogens. They're actually classified as what we call selective estrogen receptor modulators. So if you know anyone who has been treated for breast cancer, you may have heard of this medication. So it's a medication called tamoxifen or Avista. And this is what we give to women who have estrogen positive breast cancer. And so this actually is in the same class. So taking soy is kind of like taking tamoxifen. And what I mean by that is that it blocks the estrogen receptors. So most breast cancers are fed by estrogen. So if you're blocking the estrogen receptors, it won't grow. So there are actually two types of estrogen receptors in the body. There's alpha and beta. The alpha receptors are the bad ones. They tell the cancer to grow and grow and grow. But the B receptors are the good ones. So when activated, they actually block the alpha ones. So the isoflavones that we find in soy, they prefer to bind to and activate the beta receptors. So which in turn block the alpha receptors, and that decreases the source of fuel for the cancer. And studies have shown continuously that women who have consumed more soy lowered their risk of breast cancer by 30%. And as I mentioned before, if we have Japanese women who move to the United States, so a lot of their protection against breast cancer, they eat soy every day. They eat a large amount of soy. So breast cancer rates are almost non-existent in Asian countries where soy are a regular part of an overall diet. And people used to think that that was from the genes, but if you take those same women, move them to the United States, and they start a United States diet, the standard American diet, their risk goes up. So, so development of breast cancer is really about lifelong exposure to estrogen. So it actually would be good if you have any grandchildren or children to try to get them to start eating soy at a younger age. So a recommendation is really for at least 1 serving of soy a day. I have a couple servings of soy, but there are some concerns with soy and thyroid, which we talked about last week. But at least 1 serving of soy a day. So 1 serving of soy is equivalent to a half a cup of edamame, which is an excellent source of protein as well. 1 cup of soy milk or a 1/4 cup of tofu. So you actually don't need that much tofu to get a serving. So cruciferous vegetables are amazing. And I make sure I get at least 1 serving, but probably more, 3 or 4 a day. So I know today I have some in my dinner, and I had at least 2 servings for lunch. So cruciferous vegetables actually are part of the brassica genus of plants. They all come from the mustard seed. So they're all kind of hybrids from the mustard seed. So it's really shown that, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, they help the body eliminate cancer-causing chemicals. So it helps grab onto the toxins and it eliminates it. So cruciferous vegetables are really rich in nutrients, including several carotenoids, so like beta carotene, which you think of like carrots, lutein, which is good for your eyes, vitamin C, E, K, they've got everything in there. The green leafy vegetables are the kings of the vegetable in terms of their health. So kale, collard greens, the leafy vegetables are really, because when they have to, for photogenesis, there's a lot of, they have to be able to protect themselves against all that energy. So they've developed protective mechanisms, and when you eat it, you get the benefit of that. So in addition, cruciferous vegetables contain a group of substances known as glucosinolates, which is just a big fancy word, which are the sulfur-containing chemicals. So if you cook cauliflower and you steam it and you're like, what's that smell in the house? So these are the ones that give that the pungent aroma and the bitter flavor of cruciferous vegetables. But during food preparation, so cutting it, chewing and digestion, anytime you kind of cut, if you bite into it, these glucosinolates are broken down and they become biologically active compounds. And the one that is the most famous and the one I love to talk about is sulforaphane. So it's been really frequently examined for its anti-cancer effects. So it has many beneficial effects. So it inhibits the development of cancer in several organs, including the bladder, breast, colon, liver, lung, and stomach. Studies in animals and experiments with cells grown in the laboratory have shown many different ways in which the compound, which sulforaphane may help prevent cancer. So right from the beginning, they might prevent DNA damage, right, by lowering oxidative stress. And that's like the first step, right? So the initiation of cancer. They do that. They also inactivate carcinogens and increase their excretion. So smoking, or things such as benzene, they help inactivate it so they can't cause the DNA damage. Sulforaphane has great anti-inflammatory effects. I know there's a lot of science terms on here, but so it lowers inflammation. They actually induce cell death, which is apoptosis, which is, as opposed to sometimes we want to fix the DNA and put the cell back into circulation. And if we can't do that, we want to kill the cell so that it doesn't reproduce. So they can induce cell death. And the important thing is they also inhibit blood vessel cell formation. So back on the first screen, or back about how cancer is, once tumor cells start growing, when they become a tumor, they really are an organ in the body, and they start growing blood vessels into it to provide blood to the tumor. So but sulforaphane really, it will help inhibit this blood tumor, this blood vessel formation. So, and as well as also help stop tumor cells from migrating. So this is something you could take to help, you could consume to help prevent cancer, but even after you've been diagnosed. So some studies have shown that a serving of cruciferous vegetables a day may cut the risk of cancer progression. So if you already have cancer, like a stage 1 cancer, it can prevent cancer progression by more than half. So, and the best source, the highest source of sulforaphane that I use too, and I just made a bunch, is broccoli sprouts. So broccoli it has tons of sulforaphane, but broccoli sprouts, because they're actually living organs, so they're actually, it's growing, it's in the phase of growing. So I make a batch of broccoli sprouts about once a week, and I put it in my salads and put it in my, and I always think, oh, I'm protecting myself from cancer when I eat that. So fiber is incredibly important, and there's a huge fiber deficiency in the United States. So fiber, it leaves your stomach undigested. So there's two sides, there's soluble and insoluble, but leaves your stomach undigested. It ends up in your colon, which is the bottom. So we have about 36 feet of bowel in our bodies, right? But the majority of it is the small intestine, which is what comes right out of your stomach. But the colon is the last 3 feet or so, and that's where all the bacteria, we have trillion bacteria in our body, but we have friends, our friendly gut bacteria. So, and they need this fiber to function. And I could do many sessions on the gut microbiome and how to feed them. But we need the fiber to feed these friendly gut bacteria, which are crucial for our immune system. 95% of our immune cells live in our guts. So we really need to feed the friendly gut bacteria, and it leads to a lot of different health benefits. So certain types of fiber also promote weight loss, lower blood sugar levels, but in terms of cancer, there's a couple things that it does. So it generally reduces estrogen levels by binding to the estrogen in your gut and excreting it. So as estrogen is produced, it gets bound by the fiber, and it gets excreted in your stool, and then also helps prevent against colon cancer by increasing intestinal motility and decreasing constipation. So the quicker things are moving around through the bowel means, so the lining of the bowel is actually just 1 cell thick. So it doesn't take much to make a cell change. It's amazing when you think about it. So moving things quicker means less exposure to the linings of intestines, which is and decreased chance for cell mutation. So the recommended amount of fiber from the American Academy of Nutrition is about 28 grams of fiber for women, and 38 grams or 34 grams of fiber for women, and 38 grams per day. But it's really thought that about 95% of Americans do not meet the recommended fiber intake. So the average daily fiber intake in the United States is about 16. So these are some great, so it's easy to get to 24, right, as a female. And as you note, fiber, there's no fiber in meat and poultry or eggs and dairy or soda. Because fiber, the only place you get fiber is from plants. It is literally the structure that holds the plants together. So without fiber, the plants, it's what holds them together. It's the architecture of it. It's the framing of the house. So, but it's so easy to get. I mean, I probably have at least a cup of beans a day, if not a cup and a half. I have so many. I mean, if I actually counted up my fiber, I probably get like 70 grams of fiber a day. So, because I eat all fruits and vegetables. But so the fiber is really important. So trying to aim for the goal or more of your fiber daily intake is really important. So herbs and spices. So of all the categories of foods, herbs and spices have the highest antioxidants. And the antioxidant quotient is really what is, that's that's what prevents those when you get those free radicals, the carcinogens floating around in the body, the antioxidants are what go and clean them up. So herbs and spices. So turmeric is really, really the star here. And there's been more in just the past few years, there's been more than 5,000 articles have been published about coumarin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric. And that's what gives it that bright yellow, orange color. I love this photo because I don't know if anyone's ever been to Istanbul, but if you've ever been to the spice market there, there's just reminds me of the spice market there. It's just spices for as long as you can see. So turmeric, it's a powerful antioxidant, and you only need tiny amount, a quarter teaspoon daily, as well as anti-inflammatory studies. So there's a lot of studies that show people who were taking, Aleve or naproxen for osteoarthritis, they switched to turmeric and their pain relief actually improved. So they didn't need to take the anti-inflammatory. So it's shown that it may improve, may play a role in preventing a variety of cancers, including multiple myeloma, colon cancer, and pancreatic cancer. So the data on pancreatic cancer is actually very, very strong. So even if someone's been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, if they either take turmeric as the spice, or this is one of the few spices that in the supplement form, the data is actually very good as well. Because normally, most of these, the scientists or the companies try to isolate a nutrient. So vitamin C, and try to isolate and sell you a vitamin C tablet. But really it's vitamin C in its natural setting is what does the thing. So it's with the fiber and all the other nutrients that it's with that works together. So turmeric, though, is one of the few that the studies have really shown that as a supplement, it's just as good. So I prefer to cook with it. I do use it quite often. It's in my dinner, it's cooking as we speak. But the coumarin supplements are as good. The other things, it literally turns your blood into a free radical fighting machine. So they can test your blood before taking turmeric, test your blood after, and your anti-inflammatory, your effects of your blood is that much worse. If they drip your blood on cancer cells, that's how they do those studies. But from before or after, turmeric is just really powerful. So the little trick with turmeric is it needs a little pepper to really kind of activate it. Well, because your body tries to, when it gets into the blood, the liver tries to start to process it and excrete it. But if you have a little bit of pepper, it kind of blocks the excretion, so it stays more active in your blood. So it increases the bioavailability. So, and then all herbs and spices are really good and anti-carcinogenic. And so berries is the last category of food I'm going to talk about. So they offer a potential protection against cancer. The thing about berries is that other than herbs and spices, they are the most antioxidant packed food category. So as a group, they average 10 times more antioxidants than other fruits and vegetables. And antioxidants is where it's at. We want to stop that cell damage, right? And 50 times more than animal-based foods. So the more colorful foods they're healthier, and the more colorful they contain more antioxidants. So the colors are the antioxidants. So picking brightly colored fruits increases the antioxidant amount. So blackberries, everyone always thinks blueberries. Blueberries are fantastic, but blackberries actually have the highest of the commercially available, not thinking about goji berries or elderberries. Blackberries are actually have the highest antioxidant bang for your buck, but they are more expensive. So, but when they're in season, I do have a lot of them. Just a word on breast cancer, since everyone here is a female. So really, so you want to choose, So approximately 80% of cancers are estrogen receptor positive. So the focus is really on decreasing your exposure to excess estrogen over your lifetime. So the things you want to do are choose plant-based foods. And when I say plant-based, I mean an actual plant, not something that used to look like a plant, but now you can't recognize it as a plant. Exercise regularly. Exercise. So even just walking has really been shown to strengthen the immune system and help the body kill cancer cells. And if you have cancer, the fatigue, if you have breast cancer, the fatigue that comes with it, if you make yourself walk, it improves the fatigue. You have to kind of try to get yourself out. Limit alcohol consumption. Alcohol can actually increase estrogen levels and can cause some DNA damage, which is, as we talked about, is the first step in cancer development. And alcohol also interferes with folate, which is an important part in the DNA repair process. And just work toward maintaining a healthy weight. So fat cells are little, or so if you fat deposits are really an organism into and of themselves, and there's a lot of estrogen and excess weight. So fat cells actually produce estrogens themselves. So now if you already had breast cancer, it really is, there's research, there's a lot of research that shows that breast cancer patients who you actually increase overall survival with consuming moderate amounts of soy. So 1 or 2 foods a day. You actually decrease, there's a 60% decreased risk of having recurring breast cancer and a 30% decrease in mortality. So, and as an added benefit, soy also lowers cholesterol, so you get that too. So I just wanted to do a little bit on breast cancer, so because I know we're all women here. I'm pretty sure we're all women here. Let me turn my, not everyone has their videos on. So I am going to stop sharing to Facebook so that if anyone